Greetings, YouTubies! Alrighty, today's topic is risk and miscellaneous other thoughts. First things I'm going to cover, I had some glue marks on my tank which were left over from the previous owner's tank pad. Super hard, like really tough to remove glue marks. We're talking glue gun could not make a dent. A lot of pressure could not make a dent just with glue gun and wiping. So what I did is I took my handy dandy Dremel. Ooh, a lot of reflection on that plate. Took my handy dandy Dremel with a buffer pad and with more pressure than you would think, got rid of the glue quite handily. So there's a tip for you. If you've got some stubborn glue stains, which are hard as rock, that's the way to remove it. If your regular rubbing or glue gun doesn't work. Obviously try the least invasive method first if you can. Camera mounts. I've been looking at additional camera mounts. I had a little truck there trying to play tailgater. That's what you get, trucker. Mother trucker. So, what else? Gave him a little wave. Yeah, so camera mounts. I've noticed that R1 Chronicles has a very cool camera mount right on his tachometer on his R1. And he has it arranged in such a way, or mounted in such a way, where he can still see the needle as it goes to the higher revs. And I'm assuming he can still see his shift counter. It looks pretty good. So, and it gives a really nice view of the front of him as he's gesturing. So I'm probably going to do that. The only thing I worry about is when I remove it, if I remove it, what's it going to do to the plastic that is on the that is covering the tack? Don't know. Should be okay. The glue is very strong on these GoPro cameras. It's the very high bond glue 4991. And when you remove a GoPro base plate, you get this sort of, there's a lot of pressure being applied or pulled on the whatever it is. But it should be okay. Pick a lane and roll with it. I'm heading over to Old Newhall, and I'm going to talk about risk. Risk. Okay, so when you ride a bike, a motorcycle, there's risk involved. There's risk involved in life, but it's not equal, right? So, some things are decidedly less risky than others. Riding a motorcycle is one of the more risky things that you can do. Not just due to your own shortcomings or gaps in your skill or whatever, but other drivers. Just by way of being on a motorcycle, or by virtue of it, you are vulnerable. You have no cage around you. So what do? Some people tend to embrace that risk, or they mitigate it, and they have a philosophy where you only live once, which is freaking true, that we know of, scientifically. And you may as well enjoy it while you're here. You're only young once, you only live once. So I never understood why people wait till they're old to go traveling. When you're old, you're too tired and you're too old to travel. I mean, you can travel, but you got old eyes, you got old legs. Travel when you're young. When you're old, that's the time to rest and paint, and knit, all that stuff. Visit with your grandkids if you got any. So, risk. Now, some people, we all struggle to get to adulthood, right? We all have to go through a lot just to make it to being adults, right? So why would you let someone else who isn't you dictate what you can do? Now, this is going to be a little controversial, but some of you will let your wives or husbands tell you, generally wives, that you cannot ride. I disagree with this philosophy. Again, if you're a sovereign adult who has control of your own life, why are you letting another adult veto what you want to do? What that does is it builds resentment. It's a good way to kill a relationship. If that happens enough, it's very bad for a relationship. Now, this comes back to my view on relationships, right? You're an individual first. Always, foremost and always, you're an individual first. Secondarily, you're in a relationship. So, you can't really contribute to that relationship if you're not a happy individual. If you're letting someone else dictate what you can do and you can't do, you are less an individual now. You are a subject of sorts. I refuse to let myself be owned by another individual. At least, involuntarily, I mean. Like, I'll let myself be borrowed and rented as far as a worker or an employee. But I would never let someone tell me I can't ride. Because what can I tell them now they can't do? Alright, your knitting bee, off limits. No more hanging out with the girls, right? Goes both ways. If you establish a precedent where someone else can tell you what you can and can't do, you're basically letting that person run your life. And if you have a party of two adults, neither one should have veto power, right? You can discuss something. The wife might say, oh, the kids, what if you die? Well, what if we die at any time? I mean, think of it this way. What if you never ride and you want to ride, and then you keel over of a heart attack at 56, like my dad did? Now, that's another kind of pain, because now you have the pain of regret, for having influenced or limited your loved one from doing what he or she really loved because of your worries. Granted, some of these worries are not without merit, right? People do die, they leave their kid's child, fatherless, motherless, whatever. And I'm mostly speaking about women worrying about men, since that's more common. It doesn't mean that it doesn't go the other way around, of course. Could be a guy worried about his wife riding, and he's so worried. Most of the time it's the woman worried, because women worry more about that stuff. And of course women have more of a bond toward their children generally, just because they bore them and they bore them to tears. No, I'm just kidding. They're the mothers. It's expected. You want to protect your kids, you want to protect your progeny, you want to prevent the father from dying. Totally understood. But men and women, if you want to ride, go ride, but make sure you mitigate the risks. Maybe you're someone who will only ride on the weekends. Maybe you will avoid commuting on a bike. You can always make a compromise, but you can never let someone tell you you can't ride. In my view, there's no point in being an adult if that's what you have to live with. I mean, you might as well just... what's the point? Why work so hard to be a free adult and make money if someone can tell you can't ride? Okay, so that rant is over. There are risks. You could get hit by a car. You could crash in a turn. So obviously you want to wear your gear. I'm not putting my foot down for these stops because they're so small. Wear your gear, wear a helmet, obviously. Even if you're in a state with no helmet law, they can't make a law against being stupid, but they can make a helmet law. But it is kind of stupid to ride a motorcycle without a helmet, even if you're allowed to. Like in Hawaii, you don't have to wear a helmet, but you can't lane split. That's really freaking stupid. Like, lane splitting is a safety measure. It's a way not to have to get rear-ended by cars who are texting and talking and whatever they're doing, or the drivers. And yet, you don't have to wear a helmet. I mean, that's just the dumbest thing ever. So, wear a helmet. Even a little crash at 50 miles an hour, you could end up not being able to wipe your own bum. Gear, obviously all the gear all the time. Doesn't matter if you're taking a 2-mile trip, 1-mile trip down the street, 50 mile, 500 mile. All the gear all the time. I think it's ATG ATT. I'm gonna put that right here. So the reason is, you never know when you're gonna crash. If you did, they wouldn't call them accidents, right? I've crashed once commuting on the way to work, had no idea I was gonna crash. Crashed another time in a canyon. I did have some idea that I was gonna crash. Didn't know when I was setting out for the trip, but I knew in the corner. Of course, when you're pushing it, that's the likelihood where it goes up. But sometimes you crash when you don't expect it. So all the gear all the time. Make sure your gear fits. You know, if you have a hard time buying gear and it makes it unpleasant or uncomfortable to have to either wear or buy gear, custom made. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Go get some custom made gear. Z Custom Leathers, Bates Leathers, Helimont up in, they've just moved, Fremont. And others, they make, you know, good sets of leathers. And you can get them custom made and they'll fit and you'll be very, very comfortable. So it'll feel very natural. Now heat is a factor. Obviously people are like, well, it's too hot. And then there's the old maxim, which is the response to that, which is better to sweat than to bleed, my friend. That is so, so very true. Better to sweat than to bleed. And you know, if some orderly is scraping out your wounds in the burn unit, you're going to wish you had your leathers on. But you can't turn back time, so you might as well just wear them in the first place. I think the whistling is coming from the hole that I drilled from my mic and my GoPro case. And because there's not enough general venting, the air is being guided into that hole like a whistle. That's what it probably is. I don't get it on my Arai profile though, so I'll have to compare and see for sure. So yeah, if you're going to take the risk, you may as well mitigate that risk. You can ride in a certain way that mitigates risk. You can choose not to lane split or to lane split, whichever you deem is safer. I think it's safer to lane split, assuming you're skilled at it, and you get skilled at it by practice. Obviously, if you lane split in a reasonable manner, you'll get fewer tickets and you will be safer. Mainly, lane splitting, which is legal, permissible in California, was a way to keep air-cooled bikes from overheating. But since with mobile texting and on the phone and all that stuff, it's a way not to get rear-ended, right? So if you're between cars, you absolutely cannot get rear-ended because they're already stopped, right? You're the one actually guiding yourself between them instead of them guiding themselves to a stop behind you. Now, being rear-ended is rare, but it does happen. Because motorcycles have a small profile, and you guys know. You know what's up. What ails? Obviously the gear is on, and if it fits, you're gonna wear it more. Motorcycle maintenance is part of safety, you know, making sure your PSI levels are right, checking that often, very often, if not before every ride. Lube your chain, all that stuff, oil changes, basic bike maintenance, right? All that is pretty obvious. The biggest thing is, are you going to ride at all? And the things people wrestle with when they're trying to figure out if they're going to ride. And again, you can there are best practices for starting to ride, and we know that. That's a weird little street right there. The sign turners. Okay, so which bike do you pick? Which bike? I recommend starting used and starting small. Buy used and save the difference. Oh no, a Duggarism made it into my vlog. More on the Duggars later. I love and hate the Duggars. As you guys know, I'm an atheist, so I'm not a fan of people living by religious strictures, edicts. At the same time, I like the Duggars because they seem like nice people. And I don't dislike religious people. I dislike religion, and I dislike some religions more than others. Islam, for instance, is my least favorite religion. Anyway, more on that later. And if you want to hear more about my atheism, how I became an atheist, because I'm a former Christian, then let me know and I'll talk about it. I have a theistic girlfriend, by the way, so it's not like I don't get along well with others. Although she's a terrible Catholic. Terrible Catholic. Okay, so if you're going to start riding, buy a used bike and buy a small bike. Many reasons for this, and you'll hear it all over the net. One, disclaimer, I think you can learn on a bigger bike. I think that is possible. If you're a responsible person, you're not going to open the throttle, you know, you're not going to go WFO right out of the gate. That's wide fucking open. And you're going to be pretty generally responsible. But if you start on a small bike, that's easier to do, and it's easier to go WFO and not really kill yourself. So recommendations are the Ninja 250, which is being replaced, I should add, by the awesome new Ninja 300. The Kawasaki Ninja 300 is fuel injected, finally, has a 10mm bigger tire, 140 in the back, and some chassis improvements. Gross, smoking. Chassis improvements, and it looks awesome. Looks really good. Dual headlights, all that good stuff. It looks like a big bike. It's just a 300. 300 is a very unusual size too. It's like one of a kind, really, in the States. So I recommend it. Is probably a good thing. You won't find many of those used though, because they're not even out yet, really, not in the States. But a new 300 could be awesome, and they're still pretty inexpensive, under 5K. Not bad at all for a new bike, considering a 600 will cost you 11, 12K, more like 11, 11.5. There's a lot of Ninja 250s out there, a lot of used ones, especially with the 300 coming out. You're going to find a lot of cherry 250s. So that could be a great bike. My first bike was a 99 Ninja 250. Then I moved up to the SV650. The fared model was the one I bought. My brother loaned me his naked model though, the 650 regular. And that was awesome. That's when I experienced the power of that 650 twin. I was blown away. Oh my god, it was fast. But I was ready for it because I had 8,000 miles on my trusty 250. After that, I got an R1. And the R1 was pretty awesome. The R1 was very gentle too. It was very easy for me. But then again, I don't want to discount all the experience I had built up to that time, including crashes on the 650. After that, I got a 600, GSX-R 600. And basically it was a backup bike, and of course that was easy to ride by that time. And then when I sold both of those bikes, when I sold the 600 R1, I settled on a 750, my Goldilocks zone, which I really like. You have low weight, you have more power, but not all that unusable power in the 1 liter. Now, of course, 600 and up, you're getting a lot of unusable power, but you're also getting a lot of usable power for passing and all that good stuff. Oh, are you trying to pass? Okay, he knows the road, he knows a new lane's opening up. The guy behind me was trying to crowd me in a little bit, but I guess he just knew it was turning into 3 lanes. So yeah, mitigate your risk. And if you want to ride, mother F, go ride. Just do it. Just be sensible, don't kill yourself. If you go and have kids and it's a choice between kids or riding, I mean, you're sacrificing so much, you're going to have resentment. Right? So, don't let anyone tell you how to live. One comment on the Armada is the shield, the dark shield, isn't really that effective. It's kind of too light. I'm still squinting with the sun in my eyes here. I suppose that happened on the Uri a little bit, but this is a very light shield. It's just, you know, when I wear a dark shield, I want it dark. I don't want any kind of squinting going on. The other thing you want to do if you're riding, obviously you want to take the rider course. That's the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course. And also known as MSF. That's run by the CHP or whatever in your state, whoever in your state is running it. Take that course, and it makes it easier to get your motorcycle license because essentially you pass the course, you pass the test. And you'll learn some valuable tips, and you may unlearn some bad habits if you're already a rider. And then of course there's the experience rider course, which admittedly I have not taken yet, but I may take in the future. Also, to improve your software, your brain, do some track days. Do some track days, and you'll be more comfortable with higher speeds and higher lean angles and all that good stuff. And that will save your bacon when a corner suddenly tightens up and you need to apply more lean angle. You'll be able to do it because you'll have those skills honed. So track days are a good thing. I've done a few. I've done the Star School and a few other open track days at various tracks. It's amazing how quickly that will, instantly it translates to the street. Next time you're on the street, first you'll feel like it's really slow, and then you'll be like, damn, I could dial in a lot more lean angle. But of course there's always the concerns about dirt and pedestrians and bicyclists and all that stuff. So you realize how much stuff there is on the street slowing you down. So yeah, there you have it. Hope that was useful. Take it easy, YouTube.